have an expert here on the show to ask him his insights about the matter. We have UA&P economics professor Ronilo Balbieran. Welcome to Morning Matters. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning, Ma'am Gretchen.
So we are in the middle of a 90-day pause of tariffs given by the U.S. to its surplus trading partners. 17% though in the offing for the Philippines. Where do we find ourselves now?
Well, this can only be good. No? This is a good opportunity amidst all of this. No? So, the key phrase siguro is supply chain relocation. No? So, because the whole world is a global marketplace, it's also a global factory. And so it's just a matter of figuring out where do you locate your factories so that the tariffs where the country is being imposed on, no? So will benefit much from higher or lower tariff. No? So, and I think we're if we are the second lowest in terms of this reciprocal tariff, so we can only benefit now from this particular reciprocal tariff, and so we can welcome additional investments later on as global supply chains are being relocated to the ones that have smaller or lower tariffs being imposed by the U.S.
So do you think that the Philippines can stand to benefit from this? I mean, seeing everything, the whole of market. Kung titingnan mo kasi tama ka doon, no? Pagdating sa ASEAN region, ang Cambodia, meron silang 49% reciprocal tariff. Laos has 48%, Vietnam 46%, Myanmar 44%, Thailand 36%, Indonesia 32%, Malaysia 24%, and Brunei 24%. The Philippines only getting 17%. Meron nagsasabi na hindi lang to only. Pero kayo po, ano pong para sa inyo, positibo ito?
Positibo ito kasi unang-una, hindi na naman lalala pa yung trade deficit natin. Kasi malala naman talaga yung trade deficit natin to begin with. So we are not an exporting, a net exporting country. We are actually bleeding in terms of our trade deficit. So therefore, anong impact nito? So we cannot go lower than our existing trade deficit. So, and if we are talking about our trade surplus to the United States, no, kakaunti lang yung mawawala doon, if ever. No? So, but now, with the 90-day pause, which does not include China. So yes. we are cheering, we are rooting for our Filipino manufacturer retailers, Bench, Pen Shop, Bayo, Camiseta, all our Filipino manufacturers and retailers. Kasi they will be encouraged by the global players. Oh, come on, it's now your turn to sell to America. Kasi ano magiging laman ng mga department stores nila? Kung hanggang ngayon may iiwan yung more than 100% na tariff imposed on China. Anything above 100 practically is saying no to the goods of that particular country.
Well, before we go deeper into trade diversion that I think you're talking about, meaning how the Philippines can stand to benefit from countries looking into other countries with lower tariffs. Puntahan muna natin yung impact of the 145% tariff imposed on China. Where do you think is Trump taking America, and how will this trade war between two superpowers actually affect us? From an individual and consumer perspective, are we totally apart from that, or because we are highly globalized already, we will still somehow feel the pinch? Anong tingin mo magiging epekto nun?
So, well, there are two things. No? Number one, on the global economy. So, tingnan natin siya. What is really the impact of it? So, I think our viewers need to be informed that America has 25% of the total economy, global economy, and China has 20%. The far third is either Germany or Japan, which has 5%. So nag-uunahan lang sila maging third place. And this is far 5%. So we are really talking about the clash of the titans. No? So 25% versus 20%. And we are talking about a net buyer for all goods in the world, 10%. So si America imports 10% total of the world's import versus China of around 14 to 15% producer. So it's a battle between the buyer versus the seller, and then the 25% versus the 20%.
So paano natin mararamdaman yan?
So, paano natin siya mararamdaman?
In the immediate.
So, the measure there is the trade openness index. No? So, for example, the trade openness index of Singapore is more than 300%. So, anong ibig sabihin nun? So, export plus imports divided by GDP. So, mas takot si Singapore. Why? Because kapag nag-away si US and China, so the whole world will go to a recession, then Singapore would not have anyone to sell to. But the Philippines has just around 60% of trade openness index. So what does that mean? If we are having difficulties exporting to the world, we will just buy from ourselves. So therefore, we are kind of shielded. If anything less than 100%, you are actually relying on your domestic markets to buy what you are actually producing. So us versus other countries like Singapore, which has more than 100% of trade openness index. So we are in a better shape to actually not have the negative effect of this. And number two, have the potential positive effect if investors will relocate their factories in the Philippines. And number three, if America will try to buy what we produce in the Philippines rather than China, which is now being imposed more than 100% of tariff.
I think we have a net exporting economy to the U.S.
Yes.
17% of our exports, of our global exports, are to the United States. I think a major part of that would be yung electronics natin, no? Yung
Yes.
semiconductors natin, yung parts ng mga gadgets that we manufacture here. Pagdating naman doon, I mean, how will that get affected by the 17% tariffs? Is it not much, or?
Well, definitely it will have a negative effect.
Yun yung
So,
sinasabi mo, na,
yes.
na maliit na makakita natin na magkaka-apekto doon sa mga industriya na yun.
Yes, but definitely this is in relation to other countries. No? So, but versus Singapore and the Philippines, no? So, hindi naman masyadong nag-i-import ng ganong similar products ang US from Singapore. No? So, Singapore is just a trading hub, a logistics hub that sells China, then other Myanmar, Malaysia, Indonesia, then parang siyang trading post lang siya. So us, assembly, export to the US. No? So therefore, I think in relation to other countries which make actually compete with us in relation to our exports to the US, so parang, okay, mas mahal. Ang kalaban na lang natin ay mas mahal na presyo. No? So, but nonetheless, may choice ba si America? So, ang sinasabi ko dito, this is a negotiation ping-pong activity. So, back
What
and
is
forth.
happening now?
Yes. So baka bukas, iba na ulito.
Do you think that's the real motive of President Trump, to actually get to the negotiating table, reset the economy, trying to get in a position of power against all of these countries? Kasi parang may sinasabi sila ngayon, the reason for the 90-day pause is because that has always been their intention, to actually say that they are
Open.
they are going to impose these tariffs and then get to that negotiating point
Yes.
with these countries. Tingin mo ba, I mean, is it the U.S. actually realizing the gravity of their actions, or I mean, how do you read this?
Talagang maverick si...
Flip-flopping.
Hindi naman siguro flip-flopping because I think you wouldn't want to bet against Trump. No? So many bet against him in the election, in the re-election. No? So so therefore, I think being a deal maker as he is, as his reputation. No? So markets are looking at it, reading at it as it is, and stock traders are also looking at it as it is. No? So therefore, kaya wild yung movement ng stock market ngayon. The traders are very happy with that. So in relation to, if there's volatility, traders,
movement.
yes,
may
movement,
kikita, may
yes,
matatalo.
yes. So it's never been higher. No, yung stakes are never been higher. So what 1,000, 2,000, etc. etc. Yung galaw mo na yan. So, and we've seen. So, and I think the intended impact is now being felt. No? So, many countries are trying to contact the Oval Office. No? Okay, let's talk. Si Vietnam, we're willing to make our tariff zero, no, just for you, etc. I think that is really the intention to shock.
To wait for offers.
To begin with, the methodology of the reciprocal tariffs as presented by President Trump himself is actually being in question. So how accurate is that methodology? It's a combination of not just tariff, but currency exchange, non-tariff barriers. So they lump everything and they put out a number there. No? So, but it's if you try to research it on your own, you wouldn't be able to pinpoint those numbers from your research, from the internet. So what's the point? The point is, I think they just want to shock the world. So, and
get everybody to react.
Shock it was. No, get everybody to react, and then our lines are open. You can call us anytime.
What can you offer?
What can you offer? You have 90 days.
Well, President Trump says that his intention is to bring back manufacturing and jobs to America. Do you think he can do that with these tariffs?
Let's see, no? So, but I think there are already some calls, as he mentioned, there are already some calls for some manufacturing to be shifted from.
But are
from
his
China.
industries ready to actually manufacture? Because we do know the reason why they outsource manufacturing to China is because it's so much cheaper. Labor costs are down. There is scale. Can America actually compete when it comes to that? Do they have first the workforce? Do they have the factories in place, cross industries, or is that just a dream?
Well, definitely the expected outcome there is it will be more expensive. iPhones will be more expensive in the US, etc. But I think the second strategy, the twin strategy, being hoped by the Trump administration is the Department of Government Efficiency. So, of course, it will be more expensive to produce something in America. So, but their hope is, okay, we will reduce taxes because we will be cutting down the size of our American government. Yes. So the DOGE is intended to, cut
give
the government.
More money.
Yes, and so give more money,
consumers.
reduce the taxes being imposed on corporations, being imposed on citizens, and so they will have higher hopes of bringing back those jobs and, provide some tax cuts and even subsidies to these corporations just to bring back the manufacturing jobs, especially for the automobile industry.
But certainly it won't take just a few years, right? How soon can they feel the impact over there?
Well, I think if they are to do this, no, so they have up to the end of 2025 to see if there are real offers. No? So they have to convince the investors. They really have to convince the investors na it's really worth to gamble your money. So investment is a long-term activity. And so what you need is only one thing, certainty. So the question in the investor's mind is, when will Trump decide permanently on these tariff rates? And so I think once everything subsides after 90 days, perhaps, then everything will be in place. And so the investors say, oh, this is for the next 4 years or for the next 3 years. And so we are willing to reshape our supply chains, our investment locations, and finally do it in America. But there's one thing is for sure. Everybody, especially the investors, are looking at certainty and what would be the permanent tariff rate. So that's all there is to it. So kailan ba matatapos yan? Pag natapos yan, mag-decide kami.
You're saying that people are holding on to their money now, and if they do that, what would the overall effect on the world economy
so
be?
in the meantime, that the investors are now holding back on their decision to whether to hold or to change location of their manufacturing activity, No? So if you're holding that investment activity, so that would slow down the entire economy.
The global economy.
The global economy. So that would slow down while we're waiting for the stabilization of these rates, the permanency of these rates. And so in the meantime, so those who are very dependent on trade are actually losing their minds. So what are you doing, President Trump? But for us, no, I think that's a minor blip on our economy because we are heavily dependent on our domestic consumers.
So let's move on over to the other superpower in the room, which is China. We do know that they are not known to buckle under pressure when they are being challenged. Where do you see them moving their markets when it comes to demand for their products? If it isn't in the United States, if they're getting tariffed heavily, how do you expect them to react?
Well, their most immediate plan B is to get a trade with India, with the ASEAN. So that's your and then get a trade from Russia. So the most immediate, and so therefore it may also want to maximize this thing called the RCEP, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. So that is a China-led trade agreement. So if China will not have a deal with the U.S., then that's the next resort. So, but I think it will have a very difficult, challenging activity for the next few weeks. Why? Because China is actually losing its labor force very fast. No? So it's aging very fast. And its economy is no longer growing at 10% every year as it used to. So it's swerte na siya kung mag 6-7% siya. So why? Because it's aging, it's no longer giving birth to babies, etc., etc. So the domestic market is in fact actually slowing down in terms of consumption. So it should look to India, and it should look to immediately to Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, so the VIPs, no? So and the rest of the Middle East, Africa. So that's its only chance of getting or trying to win in this battle, the clash of the titans.
Speaking of trade diversion, the New York Times article did emphasize that we are looking at this with a silver lining, that the Philippines can stand to gain through its services manufacturing, dahil dun tayo malakas, ano? Pero handa ba tayo? Yun yung tanong. Kasi also we do take note the high electricity costs here, a lot of red tape when it comes to businesses setting up shop here. How can government possibly take advantage of this opportunity to turn it into gold for Filipinos?
Well, the good news is we were able to secure certain institutional victories in preparation for this. Parang medyo napagandaan na natin to, especially for the amendment of the Public Service Act. No? So that's 100 year in the making in terms of amending that Public Service Act. No? That we are able to allow foreigners to own 100% of some key industries that we used to protect. No? Dati, maririnig mo, 40% lang kung foreigner kasi delikado yan kasi pang Pilipino lang yan. But so, ano natin yan sa airport, sa telecom, sa transportation. So, and then, number two, we are able to put in place the Create and the Create More Act. So therefore, now putting in place more tax incentives, expanded tax incentives, especially for what you mentioned about power. So meron kang additional deductions in terms of your tax obligations if you're a power-heavy investment. So,
but in terms of being a manufacturing option, can we realistically be that?
Yeah.
For let's say for the United States, if they can't outsource from China.
So definitely these are the things that our Super Secretary Frederick Go and the Secretary of Department of Trade and Industry, Secretary Roque, can highlight to our potential investors. Look, so if you want to relocate here, exporting to the U.S., these are the things that you can take advantage of. And we have just recently signed this very crucial game-changing laws that will enable you not just to take advantage of our 17% reciprocal tariff, but at the same
Actually,
time,
nakausap nga natin ng DTI, no? At ang sabi nila, this is good for us because, for example, our coconuts can now be price competitive. If you compare it to Thailand that is at 36%, yung ating exports, no, yung products natin, papantay na. Kasi
Yes.
kung murang-mura yung mga produkto mula sa Vietnam, sa Thailand, yung atin, it can actually compete. Do you see it that way also?
Yes, yes. So again, you're very correct in that. No? So it's a competition of the price, the selling price, at the same time your cost. So kasi the price minus the cost is your profit. So if we are competitive in our price, and at the same time we're offering our investors many more deductions in terms of their tax obligations, then hey guys, we're actually now more competitive. You now stand to gain more profit for our price and cost structure than anybody else in this region.
All right, I think those are bright spots to see. Of course, we'd like to see those in the midst of a volatile market, global economy. Maraming salamat for explaining everything to us and how we take the 90-day pause for now. Maraming salamat to UA&P Economics Professor Ronilo Balbieran for joining us on Morning Matters today to shed light on the tariff and the trade war between the U.S. and China.